The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing artists to sample old hits.
I've been throw up the sex in
Nostalgia is like a poison in 2024. It's in our movies, it's in our TV shows, video games, commercials, but one of its biggest victims has been the music industry. And in the 2020s, it seems as if sampling an old hit from the 90s, or just giving off a more retro vibe so that someone can go, hey, I recognize that, is the most foolproof way to secure a hit these days. It's so easy, a caveman can do it. Last year alone, Billboard's top 10 included a remix of a 7-year-old song, an 80s cover, and 3 songs blatantly interpolating old hits. So if you're just as annoyed as me when you hear this,
I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright,
or this,
F-R-E.
and especially this,
Never take a L, no more.
we're gonna get to that one later. Oh boy, are we gonna get to that one later. You're not alone. Because what if I told you this is all intentional? What if I told you there's a lot more to this than just, it sounds good? And what if I told you it's been going on right in front of our eyes for years? Today, we're gonna get to the bottom of music's obsession with nostalgia, why it's happening, who's behind it, and if it'll ever end. Because it's gotta, right? Right?
Yeah, a little fast though.
So if you don't know what nostalgia or sampling is, nostalgia by definition means a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. So whether that be to when you were a kid playing Modern Warfare 2 on a Friday night with a pair of Turtle Beaches on, screaming profanities at someone, or maybe even the time you spent with a loved one who's no longer here, that was a big jump. Nostalgia is something we've all felt in one way or another. And in a lot of cases, it makes us feel good and it's designed to do so. But in others, it's used to manipulate you to fork over your hard-earned cash so a corporation can profit off your feeble mind, you stupid mother. We'll get there. There's good nostalgia and there's bad nostalgia. Just like there's good song sampling and interpolation and bad. And sampling is a technique used in music production that takes an element from a pre-existing recording, whether that be a song or a soundbite, and uses it in the composition of a new song. Not to be confused with interpolation, which essentially is the same concept, but without using the original recording. Whether that be lifting lyrics or melodies from a pre-existing work. The two concepts go hand in hand and have been really the foundation of a lot of modern music. So this idea of nothing really being new isn't even new because creativity has to come from somewhere. Taking what's worked before, when done right, can be really special. And I think the best way to preface this all is to look at one of the best instances of this of all time. One that not only blatantly samples an already established hit from before, but stands on its own while also honoring the original song it's lifting from. One of the greatest pop songs ever recorded by one of music's most gifted and controversial minds of all time, the one and only.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
Stronger by Kanye West, like a lot of his discography, is a testament to not only the power of music sampling, but pressure. Kanye was coming off 2 of the most well-received hip-hop albums of all time, as well as a stint as a supporting act on a U2 stadium tour around the world. And while many would have stayed complacent in a moment like this after so much success and a proven formula that works, Ye noticed that his music didn't translate as well to the stadium setting that U2's music did. And while all this is going on, back in America, the Crimea River Kid has the clubs popping.
I'm bringing sexy back.
Justin Timberlake linked up with legendary hip-hop producer Timbaland to cook up one of the defining pop albums of the 2000s, Future Sex Love Sounds. A cross between pop, disco, hip-hop, dance, and R&B that instantly took the world by storm. Like, even as a kid, these songs had us feeling away in the 4th grade. So imagine being as competitive a man as Kanye West is, winning 6 Grammys in the last 3 years, going on tour with the biggest rock band in the world as a rapper, then seeing your fiance like someone else's song a little too much, and to top it off, it's produced by one of your biggest rivals at the time, Timbaland. That can drive a man nuts, especially Kanye. Kanye not only wanted to run rap, but had aspirations to ruin the pop charts even more so than he'd done already. And with that headspace, that's how you get in the studio and make a song like Stronger. The second single of Kanye's 3rd album, Graduation, that of course samples Daft Punk's iconic 2001 hit, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. A song that itself samples the 1979 song, Hold the Bottle Baby by Edward Birdsong. And something to note about Stronger, compared to a lot of the other high-profile lot samples on Graduation is how he doesn't make Stronger unrecognizable. He instead takes it at face value, but it's when the record plays that you could hear how much blood, sweat, and tears went into producing a song like that. Almost as if in the context of his version, the sample is this futuristic Roman Coliseum, and the main event is Kanye West, bringing his world to an already established one, and completely dominating it to a point where his presence becomes synonymous, turning a quirky house record into a self-worth anthem, paraphrasing the sentiments passed on by a German philosophizer, Friedrich Nietzsche? Into a digital age battle cry about coming back stronger than you ever were before. It's not Shakespeare.
Heard they do anything for a Klondike. Well, I'll do anything for a blind eye.
But it doesn't need to be. And not only that, but you hear these stories about him mixing the song 75 times and having producers like Pharrell and Swizz Beatz come in after the song was released because the drums weren't hitting as hard in the club as Timbaland's latest single was, The Way I Are, only for him to eventually just bring Timbaland in and he figures out the drums in 2 minutes. Damn, Timbaland had us in a chokehold back then. You don't get a song like that without that kind of persistence, and it's all in the record. Stronger is the perfect encapsulation of why Kanye is Kanye, and a beautiful example of how art truly never dies. Whether it was through sampling or being inspired by his peers, to even basing the song's core message around the teachings of a philosopher from the 1800s, it's like sampling in 3 different dimensions. And that's what art is. We take from what came before and build upon it. And I don't know, I think that's pretty dope. Now let's talk about Jack Harlow.
I've been throw up the sex in
I like Jack Harlow. I think he gets a bad rap from time to time, and I actually think he can be a good rapper. Nail tech rips. I like a lot of the earlier stuff. I actually thought Jackman was pretty underrated, but his 2022 single First Class, I think not only encapsulates what's wrong with music in the 2020s, but pop culture as a whole.
My nail tech knows how to keep it a little secret.
First Class's popularity and First Class's existence completely ride on this idea of your nostalgia for Fergie's glamorous. I mean, just listen to the hook.
I've been throw up the sex in and I can put you in.
It being completely devoid of all life feels almost purposeful, so that by not adding anything of substance to it, enhances its chances of virality because of the nostalgia it elicits, while also being a way for the label to repackage an old hit because if it worked once, why not just serve it to them again with a new fresh coat of paint? A very new fresh coat of paint. Don't forget that. The first thing you might say is it's unfair to compare a Kanye West song to most other people's songs because he not only produces it, but he performs it as well. I mean, plus it's Kanye, and yes, I see what you're saying, but in an interview the producer of the song did with Variety, he makes sure to point out that the idea of this flip came straight from the mind of Jack Harlow. He, as the producer, just helped bring it to fruition. The album's executive producer even told Complex that Jack texted him a playlist of songs that he wanted to sample on the album because he was trying to find, and this is a direct quote, something obvious that'll connect with people instantly. So not only was this not Jack Harlow just sifting through beats and landing on this one, he knew exactly what he was looking for going into the process. And what I'm about to say contradicts a long-standing take I've had of when people say, if you take the beat away, then the lyrics are shit and then the song's not good. Because, yeah, of course, it's a song, it's supposed to sound good, the beat's supposed to be good, and even if the beat carries subpar lyrics, it's about the package overall. But in this instance, I have to ask, if you took the beat away from First Class, what even is it? Because yeah, Stronger's built around Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, but if you turn the music off in a football stadium, that crowd's making it through every word of that song with ease. What the hell are they saying for First Class?
Pineapple juice, I give a sweet.
The bars are empty, the flow's uninspired, it's just a complete drag of a song. And yes, we can make comparisons to the Diddy and Bad Boy style of hitmaking from the 90s, but I want you to think about what they were doing with those records. Think about the words being put to wax and the voices projecting them.
Pineapple juice, I give a sweet.
And I hate to keep turning Jack into this punching bag because I really do like the guy. But there's something to be said for when he sleepwalks a song like First Class to the top of the charts, but then the next year can't produce a single hit from his more introspective rap album. So 9 months later, he drops this. And it's 90s R&B flavor mixed with interpolation of Drake and Wayne's The Motto. Couldn't keep it off the chart for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And like that, Jack Harlow's back in the conversation like,
Sweet.
Another repeat offender in this realm is none other than Nicki Minaj, who after her 2018 meltdown about Travis Scott and Kylie using their daughter to promote the Astroworld album, and ultimately preventing her album Queen from going #1 in the Billboard charts, has resorted to making nostalgia-fueled TikTok bait in a desperate attempt to grasp the throne she held so firmly in the 2010s. And yes, it has given her biggest hits in years, but their appeal, like the Harlow ones, is that it's Nicki Minaj rapping over a song you remember from the Bush administration. Both of them. And she isn't the only legend fishing for hits like this. Taylor Swift and Drake both landed on the same idea, but Aubrey opted to drag along Young Thug and Future for their half-ass flip to Right Said Fred's I'm Too Sexy. Hell, Kanye's even threatening to unleash a heinous update of Backstreet Boys Everybody. And God willing will their legal team keep this at bay. This thing fucking sucks. But for some reason, people are resonating with these. The snippets go viral, the songs are hits, and it doesn't really matter if they're good or bad anymore. People can't stop eating it up. And it's not just the samples. We're watching artists completely lift aesthetics and sounds from other eras and pretty much just using them like their cosplay. Bruno Mars helped Anderson .Paak go from the guy that you and your friends at the college radio station wouldn't shut up about to a bona fide A-list celebrity with their 70s inspired Silk Sonic album. The Weeknd crafted the biggest song of all time in Blinding Lights with his 80s inspired After Hours and Dawn FM albums. And Tory Lanez, I don't even know what the fuck that guy was trying to do. You get the point. But why? Why are we here now? I think you have to start with the transition from the traditional ways of listening to music like radio, CDs, vinyl, cassettes, to the advent of the internet and the Zune. Well, not the Zune. Because when all there was radio, record labels can break an artist and make them into a household name with ease. Even post-payola, they control who got a shot at stardom. And with there being only so many stations to choose from and ways to be heard, eventually you'll like a song. Everything changes though with music's introduction to the digital world. Whether it was the iTunes store, the illegal downloading, the introduction of streaming, and even more streamlined ways for people to create and release music, millions of hours of music, old and new, is available for you to sift through in the palm of your hands. But in this, music goes from something you have to listen to on the radio or purchase physically to a file on a computer that can be shared on the internet for free, causing the music industry to nearly implode in the 2000s, and ultimately leading to the creation of streaming services in the 2010s like Apple Music, Spotify, and Tidal, where artists' music can live for you to listen to for a monthly fee. They've even allowed the music to live on YouTube so they can monetize it with those ads. So while artists and labels weren't making the money they used to off the sale of singles and CDs, it at least was something, but it was just not enough. Because of this normalization of monthly subscription services, free music, and music with ads, the people behind the music were now incentivized more than ever to do what garners the most streams. Since on average, this is what the major streaming platforms are paying per stream. Apply that to the biggest song on Spotify, The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, and that's around a $16.6 million gross before everyone involved gets paid. And yeah, you may be thinking, are you dumb? That's a ton of money for one song. And yes, but that's the biggest song on the platform. Jack Harlow couldn't even hit 1 billion streams with his last full album. Jackman recently crossed over 230 million streams on Spotify, which equal to around an estimated $930,000. First Class, though, 794 million streams and around $3.1 million. Then you got Lovin' On Me, which has been out for less time, has 531 million streams and $2.2 million. You follow? Through all this evolution, the monetary value of art is quickly been stripped away. And we now live in a world where it didn't take Kanye praising Hitler for his most loyal stan accounts to turn against them. It was him saying he was only going to make Vultures 2 available for sale on his website for $20. Streaming is the new normal. Now factor that in with the two biggest elephants in the room.
Burning like a candlelight, your love is dangerous.
So with the rise of social media platforms and the eventual introduction of TikTok, it's become harder and harder to get someone's attention because there's always something waiting for them just to swipe away. With a platform like TikTok, you only have so many milliseconds to prove that you're worth the time of the consumer. Attention spans have dwindled over the last 20 years. There's so much happening on these apps all at once, and it's completely endless. And with that, the games become what's the quickest and easiest way to get someone's attention and keep it. Now mix that with the ever-growing dumpster fire of the world's become over the last 20 years, whether it's the political climate, the actual climate, a pandemic, non-stop tragedies, doom scrolling, everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's tired, and not only is everyone wishing for things to be like they used to be, it's almost as if they're longing to feel something for periods of time that they didn't even live through. The 70s sucked. The 80s were a nightmare. Imagine living in the 50s? What the And the numbers are right in front of us. In a study done by Illuminate in 2023, 70% of all music consumed that year were from the older catalogs of artists. That was up 20% from 2020, where it was already rising. And while rejecting modernity isn't anything really new, nor is the world being kind of awful, it just feels like it's getting worse and worse every day. Maybe because social media has turned us into the most hyper-rare generation that's ever walked the earth. You see what I'm saying? The pressure's on, and there's comfort in the familiar. What's worked before for you might just do it again. And the song could be the worst thing that you've heard since the celebrities tried to sing Imagine during COVID, but for a lot of people, it gives them the chance to enjoy something because that familiarity is really all they need to get their mind off things. That's what you're competing with nowadays. And while the intention of playing on those longings for the past may seem like a stretch to you, it's not, because actually, it's become a new way of doing business. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now introduce you to the wonderful world of music publishing in God's year 2024.
Let's go.
Baby, I just want you to be mine.
You may now be asking, what is music publishing? Well, to simply put it, it's the ownership of an idea of a song and the management of said idea. It's composition, the melody, the lyrics, whereas something like an artist owning their masters is the actual recording of the song. Think Taylor Swift re-recording her old music so she can now own a version of the master of the song. Scooter Braun didn't buy her publishing, he bought her masters. A master recording is very important, but right now, there's a lot of money in the buying and selling of music publishing. Prince, Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, Michael Jackson, Frank Ocean. These are all artists who over the past few years have sold their publishing for millions of dollars. All to companies like Sony, Warner Chappell, Hipgnosis, Universal, and Primary Wave. I bring up all this music industry talk because of something I came across regarding Primary Wave. And it's starting to make a lot of sense why this rise in nostalgia has become so prevalent over the last few years of pop music.
Super rich kids with nothing but loose ends.
Primary Wave is a music publishing company that has stakes in the catalog of some of the biggest artists of all time. And a primary objective of a publishing company like Primary Wave is to not only manage these catalogs, but also find ways to monetize off them. Whether that be for use in commercials, movies, games, whatever you can think of, they're in the business of keeping these streams of revenue flourishing. Their story begins in January of 2006, where this guy Lawrence Mestal left his role as chief operating officer and general manager of Virgin Records to start Primary Wave. And him and some of the other vets that he brought along with him for this venture didn't come from the world of music publishing at all. They actually are a bunch of marketing guys. And at this point, music publishing was considered by a lot of people to be like one of the most boring areas of the industry to operate in. But these marketing guys noticed how lucrative the ownership of music publishing would eventually become. Within their first year, they strike this $50 million deal with Courtney Love, the widow of Kurt Cobain, for a 25% stake in her share of Nirvana's catalog. From there, they start to grow and grow, until eventually comes Aerosmith. This is Dream On, one of the most famous and recognizable rock ballads of all time, and the guys over at Primary Wave, who now owned a share of Steven Tyler's catalog, cook up this idea. What if we took the song Dream On and tied it into the Massachusetts State Lottery? Aerosmith's from Boston, and with a song centered around dreaming, who doesn't dream about winning the lottery? With Aerosmith theming and scratch-off lyrics on the tickets, as well as the ability to promote the campaign on radio and TV with the song in the ads. Now, you may be asking, what does the lottery have to do with...
I can lick it, I can ride it.
Well, what happens here is actually really fascinating. With Dream On's lyrics printed on the tickets, they now collect revenue on the publishing, and then get paid again when the song's master plays on the radio and the advertisements, thus getting double the revenue off one song. It's a massive hit. They end up expanding it to over 10 states, and this crazy vision of Larry Mestal and co. becomes a proven success. Primary Waves had their hands in a lot of tie-ins to a lot of the catalogs that they have ownership in. One of the more recent ones was that Bob Marley movie that just came out, but as the industry continued to move through the late 2000s and 2010s, there was of course so much that changed as we covered. So now let me ask you, the audience, these questions. If you're an artist today, and you're competing in this age of TikTok, and algorithms dominate what can and can't be a hit, and someone from a place like Primary Wave comes to you and says, I've got you covered. They give you a song with a proven formula, a sample or an interpolation of an old hit that does most of the heavy lifting for you, and a near guarantee it won't be a legal mess. Aren't you at least interested to see how it plays out? What if I told you a song I played for you before was a product of that?
Never take a L no more. Never take a damn thing slow.
yes, the hit Young Gravy song, Betty, Get Money, wasn't just a dumb nostalgia track that was cooked up because it would be funny to sample the Rick Roll song. It was hatched up by this guy named Franny Graham, a vice president of Primary Wave, who gave the song's producer a Spotify playlist of some hit songs that Primary Wave owned, and promised to clear the samples of whatever they came up with. Why? Because with the new song, it can help increase the value of Primary Wave's catalog with a sample or interpolation. And then not only generate revenue through the streams and sales of the new song, but then subliminally give someone the urge to want to listen to the old one. Just like how movie studios remake and reboot old movies, and then have the original movie from 20 years ago like repackaged in a big box set or available finally on streaming. And that's exactly what Primary Wave and a lot of other people in the music industry are doing right now. To the point where they've even started hosting these songwriting camps solely with the purpose of bringing together producers and songwriters to repurpose songs that they already own so that they can go pitch them to artists. Truly giving credence to that saying, it's like it's cooked up in a lab. And it's not like Betty was this one-off occurrence where a C-suite reverse engineered a hit, because another song that I showed you was made the same exact way just by another publishing company.
I can lick it, I can ride it.
Yeah, thank you, Nicki. Appreciate that. And these are just the songs that we've been told verbatim have been made through this process. I can't even begin to imagine what's going on behind the scenes at the big labels, because they all have music publishing arms. And you can't tell me that something like this happened out of pure love for the arts. They all see where we're at as a society. And like Hypnosis's co-founder, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to say because I'm going to butcher it, said, in order to get the attention span, more and more artists are finding it necessary to interpolate and sample so that there's a level of familiarity. He goes on to even say that the emotional connection that people have with music can help you have a hit in 2023. The using of old hits to usher in another isn't anything new, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to even criticize it here. Everything old becomes new again eventually. And it seems as if every generation has their moment where they see their youth recycled. Led Zeppelin borrowed heavily, the Beatles, Diddy and Bad Boy in the 90s, yay. But Zeppelin made Stairway to Heaven, and Diddy rightfully now may be looked at as a pariah, but at the time he had Biggie rapping over Mo Money Mo Problems. Now it's Young Gravy doing a Rick Roll song, and instead of getting Kanye's take on Daft Punk, we're treated to what feels like Jack Harlow drunk at a karaoke bar doing Glamorous. The point is, even if this isn't a new way of creating, what we're getting now pales in comparison to what came before. But you never know what tomorrow brings. We've seen other mediums use and abuse nostalgia as a way of garnering audiences to eventually only welcome diminishing returns. And 2024 has already brought the smoke to TikTok. What I'm trying to say is, these things go in and out. So does music have a nostalgia problem? Yes. Is that nostalgia being used in predatory ways? I'd say so. Is there any hope left? Yeah, maybe. Or I'm just an asshole and this is fire.
I've been throw up the sex in